Hi, buddy. Psycho here with a really important and pretty somber topic that I will be juxtaposing against video game violence. Because honestly, I feel like if people don't understand the situation better, the situation's only going to get worse. And the solutions people are trying to put forth to solve the problems don't really solve the root cause of the impulse that drives someone to a mass shooting. So today we're going to be discussing what causes an otherwise empathetic person to have the impulse to not only kill, but to kill on a mass scale. The first fallacy people run into when trying to discuss this topic is in thinking of it in terms of good and bad. And in doing so, you negate billions of years of evolution that has hard-coded things into us that we couldn't even possibly begin to understand without taking the time to acknowledge that they're there and acknowledging that they're going to make us feel ways about stuff, and we need to try and understand that. So the first example I'll give is the life of a rodent is really, really easy when there's lots of grain or whatever. You can just have babies for days. But as soon as you start introducing stressors like famine, high predation, stuff like that, the increase in cortisol and other stress chemicals causes sometimes the mothers to commit infanticide and dip. In other words, kill all their children and leave. So you can understand that there's the potential for impulses of murder to be deep within us that we obviously as conscious beings wouldn't want to acknowledge, but we kind of have hit a point where we have to. And I think postpartum depression lends a lot of credence to this. No rational mother would want to drown their child, but these things happen because a lot of the times our emotions are so powerful we are helpless but to be compelled. So I think it's worth going on to talk about a prehistoric example of a man and his family trying to live in a village that has, through just barely beginning to gain consciousness, has come up with a lot of really shitty ideas. Maybe they're sacrificing children to the gods that don't exist or the gods you don't believe in, but like stuff like that's gonna cause you to snap. One day you kill everybody in the village and the next morning you take your family out of there and no one's gonna persecute you, so you don't have to kill yourself. And in fact, you get to start somewhere else with more free thinking thought that maybe gets past the murder. However, it doesn't overwrite these impulses. So history has shown that people that commit atrocities like this are not without empathy. They tend to be isolated loners, not just total psychopaths. Total psychopaths tend to manipulate for their own interests, and suicide generally isn't in your own interest. But that's going down a whole rabbit hole I really don't want to go down. I really feel like trying to take the guns away from these people or trying to figure out whether their awkwardness made them an outcast or society made them an outcast isn't as important or even knowable as trying to be more accepting of the fact that we all have problems and impulses that prevent us from understanding what another person is saying. And if we try to overcome these impulses, you're going to be more inclined to actually understand someone else's point of view. I think overall it's going to be more beneficial to teach children that we are not too much different from animals, and that in accepting that we have these flaws and showing other people that we're okay with having flaws and people knowing we have those flaws, we're gonna be less exclusive. People are gonna feel more welcome because they're not gonna have this weird notion of normal, because no one is normal. And that's kind of where the bus gets derailed, is this attempt to be normal, to have the job, to be productive, to have the family. It's not as important as just being okay with who you are as an individual and what you have to give to the world and what you could learn to give to the world. I think that's more important. For people to be good, we have to accept and address the root problem instead of just putting a bunch of band-aids on a bunch of different symptoms that people want to call the problem. Fear and rage are primal, knowable, and understandable, but the problem is it doesn't seem like it's acceptable, which doesn't really make any sense because it's deep in all of us, and if we learn to accept it in us, we'll be able to learn to accept it in other people, and then we'll just be more willing to let things go. Because what I see is a friggin' species of people just bearing one grudge or another for no real good reason other than societal pressures. We're moving towards a world where robotics are going to unemploy an awful lot of people, and we need to make ready for a society in which it's okay for certain people to be unemployed, because otherwise a lot of that money is just going to end up in the pockets of CEOs, and that doesn't really bolster a modern society and an innovative society. We have to have faith that people don't want to sit on their asses all day, even if they can. And at the end of the day, we have to have faith that even if most people do that, the motivated minority are going to be more productive than what we have.